It's 1932. The Great Depression has destroyed Australia's economy, leaving millions suffering with unemployment reaching alarming levels. But in a small district in Western Australia, there was an even more serious problem. A problem that couldn't be solved with money, a problem that moved at 50 kilometers per hour. The Australian army went to war. Against whom? Against birds. And here's the story of how they lost. Let's go back a bit in time. After the First World War, the Australian government did a well-intentioned thing. Thousands of veterans were returning from the trenches of Gallipoli, traumatized, wounded, and with no prospect of employment. So the government offered an alternative: land so they could become farmers. Thousands accepted and began cultivating wheat on marginal lands, difficult and with little rain. The plan was excellent. The reality was a disaster. The soils were poor, the harvests weak, and wheat prices fell continuously during the 1920s, but the farmers persisted. And then 1929 arrived. The stock market crashed in America and the Great Depression began, making wheat prices fall by half. The Australian farmers, already poor, became desolate. But in October of 1932, something even worse was about to happen. You see, emus are very large birds. They measure almost 2 meters in height, weigh 50 kilograms, and are native to Australia. Normally they live in the interior looking for food, but at the end of 1932, something changed. The drought that had been ravaging the region for years finally gave way and it rained. And when the rain came, the emus began their annual migration. About 20,000 of them migrated from the coast to the interior, looking for food and water. But they found something better. They found the wheat plantations of the Campion district. What followed was an invasion. The farmers, desperate, built fences, but the emus broke them easily, destroyed everything. They ate the wheat, trampled the plantations, and opened holes in the fences. These holes allowed wild rabbits, another plague, to enter and destroy even more harvest. By October of 1932, it was chaotic. One farmer lost 3,000 acres of wheat, 1/3 of his entire annual harvest gone. The local newspapers weren't exaggerating when calling it a plague, describing them as an army of birds marching over the farms. Faced with this invasion, the farmers did something that history would never forget. They called the government and said a single thing: send the army. Now, you need to understand something important. These weren't ordinary civilians. They were war veterans. Men who served at Gallipoli and knew weapons, and they went directly to the Australian Ministry of Defence with a clear request: we need war machines, we need machine guns. And surprisingly, they got them. The Ministry of Defence, led by Sir George Pearce, a former military man, who understood the situation, agreed. On November 2, 1932, 3 men arrived at the Campion district: Major Gwynedd Purves Winterbury Meredith, Sergeant S. McMurray, and Gunner J. O'Halloran. They came equipped with 2 Lewis machine guns from the First World War, 10,000 rounds of ammunition, and absolute confidence. Meredith had a simple plan: gather the emus in groups, surround them, and open fire. And so it began. On the first day they found about 50 emus and prepared an ambush near a dam, waiting for the birds to approach. The emus came. Meredith gave the signal and they opened fire. And here's the problem. The emus don't behave like soldiers. They don't regroup in the face of fire. They don't scream in pain and fall. They run. They run at 50 kilometers per hour in all directions. Some took ammunition, some didn't. Their skin is very thick and a ricocheting bullet doesn't kill them. They just keep running as if nothing had happened. After 3 days of attempts, only 30 emus had been killed. 30 out of 20,000, the newspapers began to notice. The irony was delicious. The Australian army loses 2 birds. The headline said. So why did it fail? Let's look from multiple perspectives. First, the military perspective. Meredith and his men used classic war tactics: ambushes, regrouping, concentrated fire. But these tactics work against soldiers, beings who have psychology, fear, communication. Emus have only instinct: run, scatter, survive. It was a classic case of applying the wrong tactic to the wrong enemy. Considering the biological perspective, the emus possess advantages that no soldier has: very thick skin, dense muscles, ability to run 50 kilometers per hour on rough terrain while soldiers run only 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. In trucks it was even worse, with difficulty on harsh terrain. One even hit an emu and the result was simple. The emu continued walking as if the vehicle didn't exist. And finally, there's the tactical perspective. The Lewis gun is excellent for firing en masse when there's a concentration. But 20,000 emus dispersed over 1,000 square kilometers is not a mass, it's a dispersion. Each emu is an individual moving target that moves in completely unpredictable way. There's no pattern, there's no formation, there's no military logic. So, on November 8, after 6 days of constant failure, Major Meredith withdrew his troops. But there was a problem: the farmers refused to accept defeat. The farmers told the government, you need to try again. The government agreed. On November 12, Meredith returned with a slightly different approach, and this time it worked better. From November 12 until December 10, the army killed approximately 986 emus. Some say more, perhaps 2,500 considering those who died from wounds afterward, all for 9,860 rounds spent, exactly 10 ammunition per emu. On December 10, Meredith was called back. The army officially gave up. But here's the most interesting thing. The government didn't abandon the problem. They did something much simpler. They began offering bounties, paying farmers who killed emus with normal rifles. The result was surprising. In 6 months in the year 1934, Australian farmers killed 57,034 emus, 57,000 simple, direct and effective, while the army lost to 20,000 emus using 10,000 ammunition. The farmers defeated 57,000 emus with common rifles and financial incentive. The historical lesson is crystal clear. Sometimes, the simplest method is the best. You don't always need an army. You don't always need war machines. Sometimes you just need to think differently. The Great Emu War of 1932 is a real event, historically documented, so strange that it seems like fiction, but it's completely true. The Australian army, equipped with modern war weapons, was defeated by wild birds who were simply looking for food. Today emus still live in Australia, still migrate, still destroy crops occasionally, but never again has the government sent the army against them. If you enjoyed this absurd, strange and completely true story, please subscribe to the channel. We have many more stories like this to tell. Stories from history that nobody usually learns. Thank you for watching.